On this episode, we'll discuss developing ministry leaders who multiply. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm Kendall Connor, and I'm joined by my co-host here on the Ministry Brands team, Jess Moore. How are you doing today, Jess?
Hi, Kendall. I'm doing great. We are recording on a Friday.
Oh, it's always fun when it's kind of when our recordings are scheduled at the end of the week because we've got
Yes.
like that hope of going into the weekend, right?
Yes. I feel like I can record like less distracted. I can just be super
Yes.
locked in knowing we're about to
Yes.
the week and it's going to be fun. Yeah.
It's going to be really fun. Everyone who's listening to this, the day that this will publish, it will be on a Wednesday. And so I'm imagining all of our listeners being a little bit envious of our
Yeah.
Friday
Right.
feeling at this
Yep.
moment. But we're going to bring that Friday feeling to the Wednesday release of this
That's
podcast.
right. That's right.
I'm excited about today's episode because we've got someone who's joining us for the first time on our show. This is going to be really fun. And let me tell you who it is. I won't keep you in suspense for all of our listeners at home. It is Mac Lake. And if you have not connected with him before, let me tell you all about him. Mac Lake is an extremely gifted leader at equipping leaders and organizations with strategies to multiply their impact.
Mm.
So you may find him helping individuals to lead themselves to the max. You may find him empowering teams to be healthy and high performing, or guiding entire organizations to scale their leadership development. No matter who he's guiding, he really has a transformative approach to leadership. He has
Mm.
been a church planner. Back in the late 90s, he founded Carolina Forest Community Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, not too far from me. He later transitioned to Seacoast Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where he was involved in multiple campuses across the Carolinas. And there he served as their leadership development pastor and was really instrumental in the church's efforts to grow and to sustain that healthy leadership. In 2010, Mackey co-founded the Launch Network, which grew to be adopted by the North American Mission Board. And through Launch, he was able to implement leadership systems in 32 cities across North America,
Wow.
which is pretty
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
He founded Multiply Group, which is a consulting company that's focused on helping leaders and organizations to build their strategies and multiply those leaders. And he also has written a number of books, including a new one called Super Multiplier that we're going to get to talk through today. He and his wife, Cindy, they live in Charleston, South Carolina, and they say that they enjoy spending time with their 3 grown children and 6 grandchildren. Pretty amazing bio if you really stop and think about it, huh, Jess?
Yeah. I feel like this is, we get to bring guests on that like speak from their expertise.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like next level, like all the experience. This is fantastic.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to jump into the conversation. Before we do, I do want to encourage all of our listeners, hit that follow button. We want to make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're enjoying our show. We want to make sure that you stay in the loop as we continue to have these conversations like this. And really, that's the best way to make sure you don't miss a thing. Today, we're going to get to talk all about developing those ministry leaders who multiply. And so without further ado, let's welcome Mac Lake. How are you today, Mac?
I'm doing great, Kendall, Jess. It's so good to be with you guys today. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yay, us too.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. I know that we read the bio and, we heard all of those incredible things, but is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that maybe it doesn't make the public bio that all your family and friends would know about you?
Something that doesn't make the public bio. Let's see here. Okay, well, I tell you, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, 1984, I believe it was. And I was here about 3 months, and I was working for a little organization. And I said to the guy there, I said, "Man, I've been here 3 months. I can't find a girlfriend." And he said, "Well, there's a girl that goes to your church. Man, she's really pretty." And he happened to have the yearbook right there, and he opened up the yearbook of her senior year, and he showed me a picture. He said, "This is Cindy Bullwinkle." I went, "My goodness gracious, she's gorgeous. I've not seen her around my church." He said, "Well, she's off at college right now." I said, oh well.
Wow.
So I ended up started dating somebody else. And but little did I know that while that was happening, Cindy's mom saw me at church.
Oh
And
my
she told me
goodness.
we were having the softball game at church, and she looked
Yeah.
at her friends and said, "Who's that guy?" And they said, "Well, he's Mac Lake, and he just moved here a few months ago. He's brand new." And she said to her friends, "I want him for my Cindy." And
Wow.
they said,
Wow.
"Well, no, you better stay away because he's dating the pastor's daughter."
Okay.
And so anyway,
Curveball.
it was probably 2 months later, she got home from college. She walked into singles group one night, and when she walked in, rocked my world. And
Oh my
so
The
goodness.
fireworks started going off, right?
fireworks went off. I broke up with the pastor's daughter, had to leave the church, and Cindy and I were married 3 months later, and
Wow, I
Wow.
love it.
we've been married 40 years now, and, gosh, just this past year, we started doing marriage workshops and marriage retreats, and we absolutely love it. So, that would not make the public bio.
That
That's
is
my
an
favorite
amazing story.
answer to that question
Yeah.
ever. How sweet. I love it.
That is so cool. Yeah. Well, beyond this amazing story that you've just given us, I know that you've got the leadership side of this whole thing as a part of your story. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you get into your passion for leadership? And, did that come after all the fireworks went off?
Shortly after all the fireworks went off, yes, yeah. Um, we did get married, and then, I was in ministry, and I was working as a youth pastor. And if you ask me at that time, I was in my mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
And, if you'd asked me at that time, I was a very good youth pastor. I was creative, I was enthusiastic, funny, all this sort of stuff, and, but it rocked my world when one day 3 parents walked into my office and they said, "Mac, we love you, but
Mm.
you're not a good leader."
Wow.
Ooh.
And it
Wow.
rocked my world.
Yeah, that's super challenging.
So I knew something had to change. And so I began to read leadership books, but leadership books wasn't enough.
Mm.
Mhm.
And shortly after that, not for this reason, but I went on to seminary. And while I was in seminary, we started attending a church. And the pastor of that church, for some reason, after we were there about a year, he looked at me and said, "Mac, I want to start meeting with you every week. I'm going to give you a leadership book or a leadership tape, and I want you to listen to it or read it. And then I want you to come with your questions, and we're going to sit and we're going to talk leadership."
Mm,
And he did that with me for 2 years, and it radically changed my life and my
Mm.
leadership. For the first
Wow.
time in my life, I saw myself really as what a leader really is. And it's that relational investment he made in me just gave me a passion for leadership development because
yeah.
leadership development changed my life. It gave me a
Mhm.
conviction that,
Mm.
you know what? I have to do this. And Kendall, what I see so many times, so many people aren't doing leadership development. They're not developing leaders. And
Mhm.
here's what I tend to diagnose it this way. It's because they don't have the conviction it works because nobody ever developed them. Because
Wow.
when you
Wow.
I had a conversion, man. I mean, it just rocked my world. And I was like, I cannot develop leaders any other way than the way
Mm.
Yeah.
this man developed me. And it just gave me a conviction that this leadership development is a relationship.
Wow, that's so good.
And even just thinking about my own journey, thinking about my own story, how amazing it is to have someone who will take a chance on you, someone who can
Yep.
take a moment, and if you don't get that, you miss out on so much, right? And I would wonder how many pastors or ministry leaders are on the other side of this. Um, how many people God has put in their path in their life that they could invest in,
Oh,
right?
Mhm.
yeah,
Y-
absolutely.
Yeah. That's really cool. Well, I know that this has even been something that you have written books on. I know you have a new book, and I want to hear about that. But I even think it might be an interesting thing if you could tell us some of the other books that you have released before, because we have even checked out some of those and our own leadership team at our church. So maybe tell our listeners a little bit about those as well.
Yeah, I think the most important ones to be aware of, first is the multiplication effect. What the multiplication effect does, it teaches an organization how to build a strategic leadership development pipeline. And if you ask most churches, what is your leadership development strategy? You only get one of two answers is, hey, we don't have one, or ours is organic, which means
Yeah.
they don't have one. All right.
Right.
Mhm.
So what this book does, it teaches you how to put together a strategy, a system, a process for your organization to help you continually develop leaders because you have a well articulated leadership development strategy. So
Yeah.
Mm.
that's what the multiplication effect does. Now, part of my philosophy is leadership development is relationship. We need to
Yeah.
go back to the old way of doing leadership development, Jesus' way of doing it. And I believe very much in apprenticing and that leadership development is an extension of discipleship. So I wrote leading yourself. Now, this matches the leadership pipeline leading yourself, leading others, leading leaders, leading department, lead the organization. Those are 5
Mm.
books. Each chapter of those books teach a leadership skill or competency as well as a leadership character so
Mm.
that
Wow.
you and your church, your leaders can now begin to walk somebody through strategically through this series of books, developing their character and competency as leaders, discipling them in leadership in small groups of 1-on-2 or 1-on-3. Triads are the best way to do it. And so that is that series. And then
Yeah.
Super Multiplier was the one that just came out with, and that teaches not the organization how to develop leaders, it teaches the individual how to reproduce leaders.
Wow.
Wow.
So you weren't kidding when you said this pastor changed your life. I mean, it's had
Oh,
an impact in every aspect of your life. That's amazing.
yeah, it's been able it's helped me and build an ecosystem of books that
Yeah.
the church can now take and go, oh, here's how our church can structure for leadership
Right.
development. Here's the tools we can use to disciple leaders at various levels of our pipeline. And then here's final book is, hey, here's how we can teach the individuals, the leaders in our church, how they personally can multiply 4 generations deep.
Wow.
Mac, why do you think, like, I'm sure that there are a lot of ministry leaders who are out there and they feel that conviction, to get people to come to Christ, but they may not have that same conviction or like the same passion to really go out there and to raise up leaders. What would you say to those people who feel that way?
Yeah, it's so short-sighted.
Mm,
And this breaks my heart because when I studied through the life of Christ, so several years ago, I started studying through the life of Christ in chronological order, and I did it because our church, I planted a church 1997. It was growing really fast. We baptized about 60 people in the Intercoastal Waterway 3 months into this church plant.
Wow.
wow.
And while everybody else was celebrating, I went home and I was going, I have a problem. I don't have enough leaders to disciple these brand new
Mm.
believers.
Mm,
And so it set me on a journey, Kendall, to begin to study the life of Christ chronologically so I could see how did Jesus turn 12 teenagers into world changers? And
wow.
as I read through the Gospels, I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus was a leadership developer. And what a lot of people
Yeah.
don't
Wow.
realize is he met 5 of his first, what would be his apostles. He met them right after his baptism, after his temptation. And then, but it was a year later, he called them to be followers, not leaders. He said, follow
Right.
Wow.
me, I'll make you fishers of men. But it was a year
Yeah.
after he'd met him. And then it was 9 months later, so now he's 21 months into his public ministry, he
Right.
invites all of his disciples together, could have been hundreds, could have been thousands, and it says from among them he chose 12, and that's when he started developing them as leaders to go do what
Leaders.
he had been doing. And so I say the church is short-sighted because we're like, "Hey, we gotta get people saved." Yes, we do. And then next, we have to teach them to live like Jesus. Okay,
Mm.
that's the next step. And then we gotta teach them to
Yeah.
love like Jesus. But then we need to teach them to lead like Jesus. And,
Wow.
and so what Jesus did, he spent 21 months investing in people, developing, discipling people. But
Wow.
then he selected a handful and said, "Now I'm gonna disciple you in leadership." And Jess, it's fascinating. When you look at Luke 6 through Luke 9, and you look at those 6 months, Jesus is not doing discipleship 101. He's
Right.
doing
Mm,
leadership development, some of the finest, most skillful leadership development
wow.
you will ever read about. It's fascinating when you look at it through that lens. And so, what I say is the church should be raising up the best leaders on the planet. We have
Right.
the
Mm.
best model that ever walked, the best book ever written, and we have the Holy Spirit within us. Why in the world are we not
Yeah.
raising up the best leaders on
Woo!
the planet?
Yeah.
But
You're getting me
Yeah.
and
fired
so
up.
we
I
get content.
know. I love your passion about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read Luke 6 this morning. That was part of my quiet time, which is
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at the connection. Yeah.
And so
That's,
you saw how he prayed and then
Yeah.
came down to the foot of the mountain. And it's interesting because that Greek word where he prayed through the night, it means to
Yeah.
pray through the night without going to sleep because he's getting ready to make the most strategic
wow.
decision in his
Right.
public ministry. Who are the
Yeah.
leaders that, that God wants me to invest in? And
Mm.
then he called all his disciples, and from them he selected 12. And that's just
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
I know that when with your new book that you use a phrase that is called super multiplier, and I'm just kind of curious to hear. I'd hear multiplying yourself and like as you're raising up new leaders, but maybe it goes beyond that. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, yeah. There are 4 types of leaders, I believe. Number 1, there are some people who have the position of leader, but they're doers. They only do. They do everything, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then their second category of leader, it's team builders. They're really good at recruiting people and getting people around them and delegating and getting things done through people. Third category of leader is developer. This is somebody who can get people around them and they actually develop some leaders, but it stops there. There's a
Mm.
fourth category that I'm calling super multiplier. And here's where I came up with the term. I was driving down the road and I was listening to a Sean Stevenson podcast, not about leadership at all. It's about health. Health's one of
Yeah.
my passions. And so Sean is interviewing this doctor, and the doctor said, Sean, how many people do you think are alive today worldwide over 100 years old? And Sean said, I don't know, 25,000. He said, no, 300,000 people today are over 100 years old. He said,
Wow.
but
Wow.
they fall into 2 categories. There are those that are 100 years old, and you look at them and you go, they're over 100 years old. They
Yeah.
look like it, they feel like it. They're not very mobile, and their
Yeah.
cognitive mentality is gone, and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Um, but he said there's a second category, and they're called super agers. And they
Mm.
just have they're over 100, but they excel. They don't look like they're 100. They don't act like they're 100. They just stand out. In fact,
Mm.
when I do the super multiplier workshop, I show a video, and it's about 7 men who are over 100 years old. And the gun goes, they're running a 100-yard dash. The gun goes
Stop.
off, and this one guy in lane 3, he just smokes everybody else. I mean, the other guys are at like the 10-yard line, and he's crossing the 100-yard. And I
Oh
said,
my gosh.
that's a super ager. They stand out. Well, a
Yeah.
super multiplier is somebody who develops leaders, that develops leaders, that develops leaders 4 generations
Mm.
deep. So when
Mm.
and this is my conviction that this is what believers, Christian leaders need to be doing. And so as I
Mm.
began to think about it and begin to ask myself the question, who do I know that's produced not 4 leaders, 4 generations?
Wow.
And I couldn't count them on one hand.
Mm.
And so I was like, uh-oh, I got to write about this so that
Yeah.
we can help believers see it is possible to
Yeah.
develop a leader who will in turn turn around, develop a leader, and start a ripple effect 4 generations deep.
Wow.
I feel like a word that it just comes to mind when you're talking about this and 4 generations of leaders that have come through this is legacy.
Oh,
Like being able to pour into someone, invest in them, and to really say like, okay, I'm going to develop you as a leader, but then see them go on to be able to develop other leaders and being able to multiply in that way. It amplifies and multiplies your efforts, and it just makes it seem so much more worthwhile when you see something that you did go that far into the future and impacting people. And for the church and ministry leaders, right, it's building the kingdom over time. And so
Mm.
how powerful is that?
so many people miss the joy of it. It's like
Mm.
when Brandon and Jordan, when they were kids, they both played basketball, and I coached them. And
Mm.
but I grew up loving basketball. I thought I was going to
Yeah.
be the next Jerry West. I mean, I loved basketball. Okay, and I could use my skills, my basketball skills, to impact the outcome of a game. But then when I had my boys, I have a girl too, but she wasn't a basketball player. Um, but when my boys started playing basketball and I started coaching them, I discovered the joy of working with ten boys and using their skills to impact the game.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is fun. And so many leaders, they have the joy of leading
Mhm.
and maybe
Mm.
even the joy of developing, but they never experience the joy of somebody they developed, intentionally developing somebody else. I do have to qualify this because what I'm talking about is intentional leadership development. Who
Yeah.
have
Right.
I intentionally developed, and then they in turn intentionally develop? This is
Right.
one of the big problems. Most leaders are doing, if they're doing leadership development, it's intuitive. And
Mm.
intuitive leadership development is not reproducible because you're going,
Okay.
they developed me, but I'm not quite sure how they did it. And they're
Yeah.
not quite sure.
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
This is why super multiplier exists. It gives you a template, a framework that you can follow, and then turn around and tell that person, just like Paul told Timothy, follow the pattern that I
Mhm.
gave you. Timothy, you don't
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
make anything up new. I follow the pattern of teaching that I gave you. And so
Right.
that's what I'm saying here is just follow the pattern that this book gives you, and you'll reproduce leaders who will then know exactly how to reproduce leaders and keep it going.
It's good.
That is so good. And Mac, I can't help. I got to pause right there because you brought up Brandon, and maybe there's some of our listeners may be maybe making the connection there of your son Brandon Lake, and the impact. I know that so many people listening to this are going to know immediately who that is,
Yeah.
but that's so amazing. And my wife and I were just watching a clip of him, last night or a couple nights ago, and I think about the impact. Even we talk about legacy and things like that, the impact that he's making, bringing people to Christ. And
Mm,
this is important. This is important in our leadership development in our churches, but this is even a greater reminder in our families as
Yep.
we develop these disciples and people who go on to lead other people. Right?
yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Legacy is so important. And man, even in my family, I don't want to just teach my family to live like Jesus. I want to teach them to lead like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so many times we stop short. Well, they're living like Jesus. That's good. Well, let's teach them to lead like Jesus. The world needs healthy leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of Brandon and the way he leads. I mean, the culture of his team is phenomenal
Yeah.
because he's a great
Mm.
leader.
That's
Mm.
so cool. I know that for a lot of people listening to this, they're leading their churches, whether they're a lead pastor or maybe they're on their staff. I feel like every church feels the pressure of needing more leaders, more volunteers, more team leaders, more staff, more capacity to kind of carry that mission forward. And I'm just interested to hear from you. Why do you think that leadership multiplication or building or strengthening your teams, why is that so important when it comes to something like multiplication?
Yeah, man, I know you guys are seeing this, and I am too. I, I'm working with a 21. I'm discipling a 20, not 21. He's 20. I'm discipling a 20-year-old right now.
Mm,
This kid's on fire for Christ,
yeah.
and he's leading other 20 and 22-year-olds to Christ like crazy. And I think we're all seeing it across the nation. These young people
Mhm.
just there's
Mhm.
revival breaking out all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean, I'm grabbing him by the shirt and going, "Listen, man, I love what you're doing. This is good, but you can't do it all yourself. You can't do
Mm,
it
Right.
all yourself." There's a spiritual movement happening, and the more people that are getting saved, and churches are now growing again, which is really cool. But the bigger your church gets, the more leaders you need. The bigger
Mhm.
your movement gets, the more leaders you need. And here's what I've discovered. We don't rise to the level of our vision. We fall to the level of the depth of our leadership pipeline.
wow.
Yeah.
You can
Wow,
have
that's
a
good.
great vision. You can have vision for growing, 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 reaching, reaching, reaching. But if you don't have depth in your leadership bench, you're not going to be able to scale the vision that God's put on
Right.
your heart. You're
Mm.
limited by the number of leaders you have.
Yep.
What would be maybe a practical tip or two that you would offer when it comes to this? Because I know that people are going to be hearing this and they're going to say, I love the idea. I love the passion. Just tell me what I need to do. And I know you've got books on this, but maybe you can give us just a glimpse into that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, So I think several things you can do. One is you have to look at your calendar. Okay, so
Mm,
I'll give you. Here's an exercise for your listeners. Okay, just take a piece of paper and draw three columns. In the first column, I do this all the time. First column, write down everything that you've done over the past 2 weeks at work. Just if you're in ministry, write down every meeting, every email, every phone call, every coffee, every whatever, planning session, write it all down. In the middle column, you're going to put yes or no. Did you use that email, that phone call, that meeting, that planning time? Did you use it or leverage it to develop a leader in some way or another? Did
Oh
somebody
my
learn
gosh.
from you to do what you were doing?
Wow.
Yes or no? And then if the answer is no, in the third column, how could I have done that? How could I have leveraged that to help somebody learn to do what I'm doing? All right. And
Wow.
so it's real simple. In the book, I teach a 4-part framework. All right.
Yeah.
If you want to develop a leader, it's relatively easy. Okay. So let me use my book, Leading Others, for example. Let's say that you're a small group leader and you want to raise up another small group leader or two in your small group. All right.
Yeah.
You get a copy of Leading Others. You give it to those two individuals and say, read chapter 1, which is on how to make disciples. All right. It's how to disciple somebody. And so they read the chapter, they answer the questions, and then so that is getting them the 4-part framework is first they want to think. You want to get them to think about the competency they're learning, okay,
Right.
during their discretionary time. So they're going to read about it. Second is they're going to try it. In that chapter, it says, here's a couple of ways you can practice making a disciple. Choose one of these assignments, or your mentor may give you an assignment. All right.
Right.
You're going to try it. You're going to practice it. Third, you're going to get with your mentor and you're going to talk about it. So now we're going to talk about it and sit and talk about it. And you're going to practice in the context of my small group. It's simple as that. All right.
Yeah.
For example, right now, somebody on my team, I'm teaching somebody on my team how to write a book. Okay. So I just started my newest book. I said, I want you to write a book same time I'm writing a book. All right. And so I just started 2 weeks ago. So last week I sent her an article and said, here's how you get motivated. Read this article. It's about how to get motivated to read a book. I mean, to write a book. So she read the article. I said, when you finish reading it, we're going to talk about it. I want to hear your 2 or 3 insights, that your takeaways. She was fired up. Oh my gosh, can't wait to write this book. So this week I sent her an article, how to outline the big structure of your book. She read it this morning. We talked and said, all right, what did you learn? What stood out to you? And then I read it too. And I said, here's what I learned, And so I said, every week I'm going to send you something teaching you how to write a book.
Yeah,
And
that's
you're going to stay
great.
in sync with me and you're going to write a book because I'm getting her to think about the
Mm,
competency. I'm getting her to try it and we're talking about it. Now, if
mm,
you do those 3 things and they get it, what do you do next? I want you to teach somebody else
yep.
to do the very same thing. It's not
Okay,
hard.
not hard. I'm gonna gently correct you. It's simple,
It's simple.
and it's not easy,
Right.
right? Because it takes an incredible amount of intentionality. What
Intention.
you just described required for you to spend very intentional time with someone, being fully present, fully invested in where they're at, where you're trying to get them. That I think I'll speak for myself as a leader of a very small team here at Ministry Brands and a little team here in my home, Moore Manor.
Yeah.
I just that's where I struggle is the time, setting
Mm,
aside the time to do that. With work, it's just constantly being pulled in every direction. When you're sitting in some leadership capacity role, right, you're answering to people above you and below you. And so time is always a struggle. And then even, with my kids, they're right now, my kids and my husband get most of my energy, and that's takes a lot of fighting hard for that, in and of itself. Kendall, I know that's the same for you, especially the last few weeks. But I think that's where it gets harder, is just making time for it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's a couple of things. Number one, we have to realize that leadership development doesn't have to happen all the time when you're with me. You don't have to
mm,
be with me for me to develop you. And so I could say, just like I did with her, read this article. It's going to take you 10
Right.
minutes. I'm not with
Sure.
you, but I'm
Right.
leveraging
Right.
discretionary time.
yeah.
The second thing is, um, I'm going to integrate leadership development in my schedule, not add it to my schedule.
Mm.
So,
What do you mean by that?
yeah. So
Key.
what I mean by that is, let's say I was a small group leader. Okay. Um, and I want to raise up a couple small group leaders. Hey, here, read this chapter. Doesn't take me any time to hand them a book and they read a chapter, right? And then, hey, you're going to read that chapter on facilitate discussion. When you come to group next time, I want you to lead the opening question, or I want you to lead the first 2 to 3 questions, or I'm
Mhm.
gonna break us into subgroups and you're gonna do that. And then I want you to stay, or I'm gonna integrate. I want you to stay 15 minutes after everybody else leaves, and I'm gonna ask you 4 questions. If let's say that they were observing me, what did
Yeah.
you see me do well tonight? What would you have done different? What did you learn by watching me? What questions do you have? What did you learn from the chapter?
Right.
What did
Right.
you learn
Mhm, mhm.
practicing it? And so I'm just
Yeah.
integrating it in our time that we're together anyway. I'm writing
Right,
this book.
right.
I'm finding little things, and I'm going, oh, here. That takes
Yeah.
no time to find that article, especially using
Right.
ChatGPT.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so, find an article on this, boom, send it over, and
Yeah.
and then literally 5-minute discussion today on the phone. All right, what stood out to you? How are you going to apply it? Fantastic.
Mm,
Sounds good. And the internal motivation in her is so high right now because I'm feeding.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
about
good.
developing their competency and their confidence. And
Yes,
so, see the confidence.
so
Man.
good.
Well, just sitting over here thinking, Mac, I feel like a season like a saying or a phrase that is keeps just coming back up in this season of my life as we've got some very large projects that we're working on in different areas. I'm working on my master's degree in my spare time, all these different things. The phrase that keeps coming to mind is little by little. And
Mm,
I feel like I feel like I hear that even in the steps. It's really you're just applying these little steps for them to take, and just over time they multiply, right? They add up and they begin to make a difference in these leaders.
Oh, if
And
if I
so,
if I could tell the church one thing, it would be this:
yeah.
think slower, not faster. Think
Mm,
smaller, not bigger. The
yeah.
church wants to develop leaders faster. And
Yeah.
what
right.
they do is they say, "Okay, Jess, thanks for volunteering to be a leader. We're gonna train you. You're gonna shadow one of our best leaders for 2 weeks, then we're gonna give you your own group."
If that,
Mm,
If
if that.
yeah, that's like taking somebody who's never played baseball, putting them in a
Mhm.
batting cage, throwing 2 pitches, and putting them in a major league game.
Yeah.
And
mm,
so we gotta think slower. It takes a season
yeah.
Mm,
for a leader to season. We gotta take more
Wow.
time to disciple a leader. We gotta see
Yes.
leadership development as discipleship. Take our time. The
yeah.
second thing is think smaller, not bigger. We think it's a win when we get 20 people in a classroom for leadership development. I don't. I don't.
Mm,
Mm,
I see it as a win. What I did this morning, I got 3 men I'm discipling in leadership, and nobody else is welcome in that group. It's us, the 4 of us and no more. And until I develop them and then send them out, and then I'll find 2 or 3 more and do it
yeah.
again. But
Mm,
gotta think smaller because the quality comes in that small discussion that
yeah,
you have
it's
together.
true. That's true.
I feel like that's a good word for some of these leaders that are hearing this today, because they're thinking, they may be imagining in their mind, okay, if I'm going to be raising these leaders and multiplying our leadership, then I do have to have that group of 20 people in a room. But I think what I'm hearing is it can be even more effective to have a small group, to have that one person, that group of 3, and then consistently pour into them over time and see them grow.
Oh, I had a
Mhm.
pastor come to me one time. He said, "Mac, man, I found 8 guys. I spent 1 year every month, we would read a leadership book together, and I just finished it, and Mac, they loved it, but I got nothing out of it. I didn't get
Mm,
any new leaders out of it." And I said, "Okay, I know why. I can tell you why." He said, "Please tell me why." I said, "You did generic leadership development, not strategic leadership development."
mm,
He said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Tell me about your leadership pipeline." He said, "I don't have one." I said, "Okay, here's your problem. You gotta structure your church this way: lead yourself, then people flow to lead others, then those can flow up to lead leaders, those can flow up to lead a department, and those can flow up to lead the organization. And you put terminology on it. So it might be like team member, leader, coach, director, senior leader. Now,
Mm,
yeah.
I want you to take these eight men that you just poured into, and I want you to tell me what level of the leadership pipeline, if you had one, where would they have been? Well,
Yeah.
3 of them are team members, they're not leading. 3 of them are leading, a couple of them are small group leaders, one's guest service leader. One would sort of be like that coach level, and one of them was my student director. I said, "That's your problem." You see, I said, "What I'd rather you do, take the
Mm.
3 guys who are at that team member level and take them through leading others and raise them up to be a leader. Now you just got
Yeah.
3 brand new leaders. Or take the
Right.
3 guys that were at the leader level and
Yes.
take them through leading leaders and raise them up to be a coach. Now you got 3 coaches. You
That's
Mhm.
you just
good.
wasted a year." Yeah, they loved it, and they're
Wow.
Yeah.
probably better leaders, but they're not helping lead and carry more weight and responsibility and spiritual authority at the church.
Yeah,
Man.
being strategic and, identifying where they are in that pipeline and, applying a method to it, I feel like is where, just picking up a random book or,
Right.
watching, random leadership videos and things like that. When you can apply that strategy to it, I feel like that does take it to the next level.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You'll begin to see results.
I'm thinking about, as a pastor or a ministry leader, you have people who are in your congregation, you have people who are there and you may say that you have the heart that you want to develop leaders. Do you have any recommendations for how they should pick how should they choose the kind of individual in their church that they should seek after to become a leader to pour into?
Yeah, yeah. Kendall, one time I had a guy in my small group, and he came up to me after small group, and he said, "Mac, I wanna do what you do." I said, "What do you mean you wanna do what I do?" He said, "I wanna lead a small group the way you do." He said, "We love each other, we're growing spiritually, we're serving the community together. I wanna do what you do." The whole time he's telling me this, I'm staring at him. His name was Roger. I'm staring at him, and I'm in my head, I'm thinking, "Roger, you can't do what I do. You're not ready. You're not ready."
Mhm.
But he persisted. So finally I
Mm,
said, I didn't know leadership development at this point. I said, "All right, Roger, just show up at my house 15 minutes early and plan on staying 15 minutes late." And so I started developing, one little thing at a time, I started developing,
yeah.
right? And eventually he left and started his own group, and it was really, really cool. And here's the mistake I made. I was looking for readiness, not for willingness.
Ooh.
And this is the problem of the local church
Wow.
today. In the local church, we look around, we need a leader, we look around, we go, "Oh, he's not ready, she's not ready, he's not ready. Oh, there's somebody that's ready." And we pick them up and we put them in a leadership position. And then we say, "Oh, I just did the leadership development." No, you didn't. That's leadership
Mm,
placement, not leadership development. And there's a huge difference between the two. And so we've got to
wow.
get back to how do we identify leaders? Somebody, I say it this way, I want to look for somebody that's teachable, somebody that
Mm,
has integrity, somebody that has passion and spiritual hunger. And if I can find those things, then you can develop the competency, right?
Mhm.
yes.
It's what Jesus did. I write about this in Super Multiplier. It's what Jesus did with Simon. He met Simon in the fall of 26 AD. Okay. And
Wow.
he looked at Simon and very first time he met him, and he said, "Your name is Simon, but you will be called Peter." And,
Mm,
and it's like he changed his name. Now, when a rabbi or prophet would give somebody a new name, it wasn't giving them a nickname. It was prophetically speaking into them something that was true
mm,
about them, but not true yet. And
Wow.
wow.
so in the fall of 26, he saw this in Peter. He spoke it into Peter, and then he built a relationship with him over the next year. And then he began to develop him and disciple him and then do leadership development with him. In the fall of 29 AD, this is 3 years later, 3 years
Wow.
he's standing in front of the gates of hell in Caesarea Philippi, that giant place where they worshiped all the different gods. And Jesus says to his apostles, "Who do you say I am?"
Mm.
Peter looked at him, and for the first time, it clicked with Peter. "You're not just the Messiah. You are God. You're the Son
Yeah.
of God."
Mm,
And Jesus looked at him and said, "Now you are Peter. Now you're
Whoa.
mm,
in John 1,
wow.
you will be rock."
Mhm, mhm.
Here in Matthew 17, I believe it is, you are now rock. We
Wow.
got to learn to see people not for what they are today, for what they can be a year from now, if we poured into them, if we develop.
Mm.
We always want more out of people, but here's what I say. If you want more out of people, then put more into
Yeah.
Wow, that's a word for today.
them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, we could just close up right now. I think we I think we got what we need. No, that's incredible, and I feel like it's a really good reminder because so many times as ministry leaders, we just think that someone's gonna come in, they're gonna be 100% ready to go. We can plug them right into whatever, position or thing that we think, but really, I think God is bringing us people not just to serve in that role, but that God is bringing us people because He wants us to develop them. He wants us to
Mhm.
disciple them. He wants us to take them to the next level and to be good stewards of the people that God has put into our congregation, right?
Oh my goodness gracious! Most churches have what I call a wait and hope leadership development strategy. I'm going to
Yeah.
wait and hope somebody shows up that we can plug into leadership, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so what happens when and they might find somebody and if they do any leadership development,
Yeah.
here's one of the big mistakes we make. We teach those leaders to turn our ministry widget, and
Mm.
that's it. And again, that's so
Yeah.
short-sighted because
Right.
the church should be teaching people, discipling people to live a
Yeah.
biblical lifestyle of leadership, not just turn our ministry widget. I don't want you just with these 3 guys I'm discipling, I don't want them just to lead well in church. I want
Mm.
them to lead well at home. I want them
Mhm.
Yes.
to lead well at work. I want
Yeah.
people around them to go, "Where did you learn to lead like this?" And them to look and go, "Through my church."
Yeah.
Through my church. And so, this discipling of leaders is essential because we need
Wow.
more healthy leaders representing the kingdom and reaching people for the kingdom. And healthy leadership's attractive, and I'm doing a lot of work with businesses right now, and I'm learning that healthy leadership is also rare.
Mm.
Mm. Wow. Well, I mean, I know that you're working with organizations, you're working with businesses, but you've worked with so many churches and been able to multiply leaders in that way. One of the big themes of our podcast is we talk a lot about healthy churches. And I'd love to just ask, we ask every person that comes on the show, in your opinion, what would you say is one essential component of a healthy church?
Um, we just did I've got something called the multiplier circle. It's an inner circle of leaders that I develop every Thursday. We just finished a 6-week series on discipleship.
Mm.
And, my friend Dahadi Lewis puts it this way: discipleship is not a program of the church. It is the program of the
Mm.
church.
Yes.
It's
And
good.
here's the thing I try to emphasize with this, with my multiplier circle. Guys, Jesus said, "I will build my church." He did
Yeah.
not
Mm.
tell us, "Go build my church." What did he
Right.
tell
Right.
us? Go make disciples. And if we
Yeah.
would go make disciples, guess what would happen? He would build his church.
Right.
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 We get it backwards.
Good reminder.
Yeah, so we get out there and we're trying everything, all the strategies we can, and we work as hard and we spend a lot of money on reaching people to build the church while our discipleship efforts are anemic.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I had
Wow.
multi-star circle. I had everybody in there. I said, I want you to grade A, B, C, D, or F, your children's discipleship, your students' discipleship, and your adult discipleship.
Mm.
And then here's a question I ask them later on. What percentage of your leaders in those 3 areas see themselves as disciple makers? You know what the most common number was? 20%.
Wow.
How in the world are we
How
gonna make disciples
convicting. Yeah.
if only
Yeah.
20% of our leaders see themselves as disciple makers? And so
Right.
here's what I love to challenge them with. This question: have you truly made a disciple if your disciple never makes a disciple?
Wow.
The answer has to be no.
Whoa.
Because
Yeah.
you've only got a half-baked disciple, because what do disciples do?
Yeah.
They reproduce, they make other.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh.
and when you start thinking about the multiplication, I mean, it really, yeah, convicting. That's so convicting, right? Like,
It is,
Yes.
yes.
it just at the same time, it also it fires me up. It gives me it's sparking that passion again to go and to reach people, right? And to
Yeah.
raise up these leaders and to raise up
Oh.
these disciples. And so,
I love Greg Surratt defines discipleship this way: helping someone take their next step spiritually.
mm,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so simple
simple.
and so
Yeah.
good.
I met with a young man. I met him at the ball field a few months ago, going through a divorce. 30-something years old. He texts me.
Yeah.
I said, "Reach out to me if you ever." I don't know who he was, you know. "Reach out if you ever wanna talk." Well, about 6 months later, he reached out. So I just went to coffee with him 2 days ago. We sat and talked, not a believer, but seeking God real heavy right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I told him about Jesus, and at the end of the conversation, I looked at him and I said, okay, based on everything we just talked about, what's your next step? He
Hmm.
said, man, I got to get around some more men like you. I got to get around some Christian men. I said, okay, great. I said, do you know any? He said, I know some. I don't hang out with them. I said, okay, I want you to contact 2 of them and start building a
Right.
relationship. And when you do that, not before then, but once you do that, text me and we'll go to coffee again. But I won't meet with
Mhm.
you until you do that. I just have to take his next step spiritually. And
Yeah,
he texts me the next day. He's already on it. And so,
yeah.
I love that.
it's like Jess
That
said, we can make it simple. Yeah.
Yeah, right,
yeah.
right. Man. Also too, just we're we're gonna shift a little bit here in a second, but I wanna kinda close the loop on this because I feel like what you just shared was uplifting, but what we talked about right before that, the 20%, the conviction, don't wanna leave that open-ended. The point of this podcast and the introduction to you all to Mac and what he does is a practical solution. That is
Yes.
that is your next step, everybody. So look
Yes.
at those resources, right? So yes, that's convicting, hopefully very sobering for a lot of our listeners, but at
Yes.
the same time, let it be encouraging to you that there are these resources, right? So
Yes.
again, it's simple, right? It's a simple concept. It's going to take some self-discipline. It's going to take some self-awareness and
Yes.
evaluation and understanding, where am I spending my time? Where am I prioritizing my efforts? Are we trying to build a church? Are we really trying to build a discipleship,
Yeah.
multiplying
Yes.
system, for lack of better words? And so I just felt the need to like remind everybody, like, don't leave
Yes.
this podcast feeling discouraged. Like,
Yeah.
this is why we have back on here
Yeah. Yeah.
I
to help encourage you.
I
You know,
feel like the
I love it, Jess,
Go
because
ahead.
you're right. Everybody wants to make disciples. We want to.
Right.
We
The
allow these
intent's
things to
there.
creep into our strategy that
Yes.
makes
Yes,
discipleship less we're not doing it on purpose. It just
exactly.
we just
That.
sort of add on these extra things, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
next thing you know, we're not as effective at making disciples as
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's great.
great.
My favorite thing that I picked up from you, Mac, is you always trying to give people that next step and always challenging them. Give them almost like you're walking away with a small to-do list before they come back to the next step. And I love that because, I think that to Jess's point, leaving this podcast today, I think that's a great thing to do is to check out these resources and,
Mhm.
to put some of these things into application. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Chapter 1 of leading others uh, is how to make disciples, and I
Yeah.
made that chapter 1 because I was like, that's got to be the
The
first thing that a
foundation.
leader
Yeah.
learns is how to
That's
make
Yeah.
exactly it.
disciples, and it
Yeah.
teaches
Yes.
that little process. Yeah.
Well, Mac,
Love it.
one of the things that we love to do to kind of wrap things up with our podcast is we have a final 5 rapid fire round of questions. Are you up for the challenge of that
Uh-oh,
today?
I don't know. Okay. My catcher's mitt ready. Okay.
Yeah.
Away.
Okay. All right, here we go. Number 1, what is one book on this subject or similar you'd recommend to church leaders? I feel like this is a silly question for you, but let's ask it anyway.
Oh, I mean, the book that absolutely changed my life, when it comes to leadership development, Dr. Howard Hendricks was my professor at
Mm,
DTS. I took him every single chance I could, and he gave us the book, not 1 Minute Manager, but Leadership and the 1 Minute Manager, and
Okay.
it rocked my world. And I was like, that's the type of leader I want to be. The leadership
Mm,
1
that's
Minute
good.
Manager really shaped a lot of who I was in my mid-20s.
okay, that was the reason I said maybe this is a silly question is because I felt like we were teeing you up to talk about your own book.
My own book.
But
I
We're
will
gonna
say that
we're gonna yeah,
I
we're
will
gonna
say
link all
this.
those up too, Mac.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will say this, that Super Multiplier, I wrote this book, it's 108 pages, something like that, I forget, it's very
Yeah.
thin.
Right.
Everybody that's reading it so far saying, "I can't believe how dense the content how,
Mm,
it's helpful." And
Yeah.
I wanted this to be a simple, practical guide so that
Mm,
people can go, "Oh my goodness, this is doable. You've just given me a blueprint."
yeah.
And we created uh, an apprentice profile
yeah.
and that people can get. And it's just, okay, if I'm going to disciple somebody in leadership
Yeah.
and fill out this little apprentice profile that helps me get to know them, and on the back side, it gives you write in your plan of what you're going to do with them. So it's a
Yeah.
one-page plan
Oh,
to help
so
disciple.
cool.
That is very cool.
I love Kendall knows. Like, I love processes and efficiencies, and I'm geeking out. Okay.
We get
Um, I love it. Number 2, last thing you listen to on Spotify or Apple Music
Brandon
or wherever
Lake.
you stream.
Brandon Lake.
Aw, what a dad. I
He
love it.
he sent me a song. Oh, I turned my phone off. He sent me a brand new song this morning. Oh
Wow.
my
Oh,
goodness. It's called Like a Child or something like that. It is so good, y'all. It's a country song, uh, but it talks about uh, him being a dad and how he's teaching his son to tie his shoes
oh my
while
gosh.
he doesn't even feel like he feels his own shoes. He's
Mm.
scaring
So
away the monsters from your closet while carrying my own fears of my own fear. How can I?
Wow. Wow.
I'm supposed to raise you up as a man while I still feel like a child. And
Wow.
oh man, it is
did you
powerful.
cry?
I feel like I'm getting emotional hearing
Did
this
you
already.
cry, Mac?
I tried. I'm like, you got to release that on Father's Day, and
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they'll do. But it's
Yeah.
a powerful song.
It's so cool.
He just
I'm
wrote it and sent it over to me to listen to, and so I don't know when
oh, I
it'll come
love
out, if
that.
it'll come out, but it's a good. So that's what I listen to.
Okay, favorite piece of technology or software right now?
All right, I love AI, and I've been using ChatGPT for 2 years, and then
Mm.
somebody told me you need to switch to Claude. So I
How's your journey been? How's the transition been?
here's the way I describe it. All right, Chat has been my girlfriend for 2 years. All right. I start dating Claude and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Claude doesn't know me the way Chat
Oh,
knows
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
hilarious.
Claude doesn't speak to me the way she does. She has she's got my toothbrush and she's got my clothes. And I'm like, how do I do this? And I've been so frustrated. So now I'm using both. I feel like a polygamist. I don't know.
I wonder if you can we hack the system? Can you, like, pull all of your history from chat and
You
plug
can.
it into
I,
Claude and
I,
be
I
like,
you can.
"Figure me
I
out."
found that out. So
Okay.
now Claude knows me, just like Chat knows me.
Yes,
But
okay.
This
Oh.
Claude's personality is different than Chat.
Mm,
Claude is slower. Claude asks a lot of follow-up questions, and that annoys
mm.
me. So I'm like,
Oh,
I might go back to my old girlfriend. I don't know.
that's a lot to manage, Mac. I'm sorry. Hope that
uh,
works out for you. It's a
that's
lot.
hilarious. I love that
Okay,
answer.
quote or advice that has stuck with you over the years?
When I went to Moody Bible Institute, Dr. George Sweeting was the president, and multiple times in chapel, I heard him say, gentlemen, when you get to the end of your life, be able to say, this one thing I did, not these many things I dabbled in.
Wow.
Never forgot it.
Oh.
And my
That's
life
good.
mission is multiply multipliers. That's my one thing.
Okay, last question. One thing that you'd like to communicate to our audience of church leaders.
Oh my goodness gracious. Move away from intuitive leadership development because and try your hardest. Use super multiplier. But when you make leadership development intentional, then it's reproducible. When
Yeah.
it's reproducible, it's unstoppable. I've
It's
watched
good.
it.
It's
I've
good.
got 4, 5, 6 generations deep that
Mm,
and I don't know many of these people, but I will get messages of leaders that I've developed who develop leaders who develop that person, and then I get to hear
Yeah.
about it.
mm,
It's when you make leadership development intentional, it's reproducible, and I promise you, it is unstoppable.
so
Wow.
good.
Mac, this has been incredible. I know that people are going to want to hear from you more. We mentioned the books, and we'll 100% link those up in the show notes. But what are some other ways that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, multiplygroup.org is one way. I
Yeah.
do a monthly community called Multipliers Community, and it's a subscription deal. You can join and stay as long as you want, leave when you want. But I do a monthly training on leadership development, and everybody jumps on. It's live. I do brand new content every single time. It's
Yeah.
a part of an online community, so you get access where you can ask questions any day of the week. You actually get some of our courses that come with that as well. And so that's called Multipliers Community, and you can learn more about that on multiplygroup.org. And follow me on Instagram at MACLAKE24 on Instagram.
Very cool. We'll be sure to link all those things up too, and even to speak to your community. I'm pretty sure my lead pastor is in your community, so I might have to get in on this at some point.
Oh man, come join us. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for taking time to chat with us today. I feel like I've got to go give this a listen again, just to be able to take some notes on these things because I've got a lot of mental notes walking away from this conversation. This
Mhm.
is some more than just some challenges to develop leaders. I feel like I've gotten a lot of encouragement, and it just
Mm,
sparked that passion in me again. So thank you, Mac.
yeah. Oh, it's been fun hanging out with you guys. Kendall, Jess, thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience, and it's fun getting to know you guys as well.
Very
You
cool.
too.
Well,
Thanks for your time.
for all of our listeners out there, be sure to check out the show notes. Be sure to check out all these links. Keep leading well right there in your community. Be sure that you are multiplying leaders as we've talked about
Mhm.
today. And we'll see you right back here next week on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.